Hey, hey, hey. Good evening, everyone. PBR Monday, Hot Stove League, numero uno. As always, make sure you follow the directions that StreamYard gives you. It helps if you go ahead and follow their directions for logging in so that when you interact with us, when you ask a question, I can see who you are. So as soon as you enter the room, make sure you say hello in the comments so we can see who you are. I'm going to give the room a second or two to populate here, and then we'll get started. I see people are starting to come in. Again, make sure you say hello so I know who you are when you enter the room. It's nice weather down here, but I see it's snowing and raining up north, but it's supposed to turn colder than a well digger's fanny here starting next week, which is good for me because it means I won't be tempted to get on a motorcycle before I should. All right. I see we got lots of people coming in the room now. Well, I'm seeing 7 o'clock on the nose here, so let's get going. Once again, welcome to PBR Monday Hot Stove League #1. We're going to do this all winter long. I want to make sure that we pretend like nobody knows the first thing about what the Tour of Idaho is all about, so that you folks on new teams for 2021, and the last time I looked, I think we've got 3 or 4 teams that are already registered for next summer, which is fantastic. It's great. It's a real tribute to how far we've come in the last 15 years. 2021 will be the 16th year of the tour. And as I've told everybody in the past, the changes from 2020 to 2021 will be evolutionary rather than revolutionary, which means that a good thing that you can start doing right now is studying the 2020 route, because the 2021 route won't be hugely different from the 2020 route. There'll be places where there are some significant differences, but you can start your navigation prep right now, and I recommend you do it. The other thing that I recommend that you do right now, as soon as you can, is get your accommodations booked for next summer. Especially if you're planning on coming early in August, because there's a week there in August where Chalice becomes a bit problematic because of the Braun Brothers reunion. Now, last year, they didn't have that because everything got canceled due to COVID. This year, I anticipate that's really not going to be a problem, that we're going to get through all that. So you want to make sure you book accommodations early. Chalice can be problematic. Wallace can occasionally be problematic if you happen to be there when people are either going to or coming back from Sturgis. There are a couple of days in there where that can be a little bit of an issue. Laksha Lodge is almost always problematic. So the sooner that you can nail down a set of dates, the better it is to go ahead and call those people and make your accommodations. The very worst thing that you can do is wait until sometime next summer to make accommodations, because I can almost guarantee you're going to be sleeping on the ground a couple of nights, because you probably won't be able to get Laksha. Depending on the time of year, you may not be able to get Chalice. You may not be able to get Wallace. And in fact, this year, even Malad was booked a couple of nights, and there were some teams that showed up at the last minute, tried to make reservations, and they couldn't get it there. Typically, Malad's not a problem, where you spend the night before day one. Pocatello's never a problem. Arco's not a problem. Smoky Bar Store's not a problem, as long as you are a Tour of Idaho T1 team and you book in advance. Chalice is a problem during Braun Brothers, but at no other time. Salmon's never a problem. North Fork's not ever going to be a problem. Elk City or Lowell, wherever you decide to stay there, that's not going to be a problem. Laksha Lodge can frequently be a problem. Wallace might be a problem. And then wherever you spend the last night, that's generally not a problem as well. So make reservations for your accommodations as soon as you can. That's something you could do right now if you can nail down your dates. And it seems like it's a long way off, but I got to tell you, it gets here quicker than you think it's going to. So if you can get that out of the way right now, you're rocking. All right. J.R. Robinson, that's the one name that I see here. First time I've managed to catch one live. Welcome, J.R. I think you're from up in Salmon. Is that correct? If I'm reading your Facebook page right, I think that's right. So we have a guest tonight, Brian Fullerton of Cheerbeast, and I want to bring him on in just a few minutes and let him talk. But before we bring Brian in, again, sticking with our theme of no one knows the first thing about the Tour of Idaho, I want to take just a few minutes to describe what it's about. We'll talk about the whole history again at some other time, but just kind of the idea behind it, the philosophy, what we're trying to accomplish, what it is, and as importantly, what it is not. So those of you who know me pretty well know that I have a background. I guess I always wanted to have an interesting CV, and I guess I succeeded. I started out as a professional rock climber. I was a ski instructor and a patroller for a while. Uh, Wrote a couple of books and saved enough money to go to college, and I became a physicist. And I did that for 30 years, taught physics at Eastern Kentucky University in Idaho State. And all during that time, I climbed a lot. I spent a lot of time in the mountains, and I didn't really get into dirt biking until kind of late. I was telling Brian a few minutes ago, I didn't own a dirt bike until I think maybe 2002, 2003. I road raced a lot. So I rode street bikes, but dirt biking I came into actually kind of late, nearly into my 50s. So when I got into dirt bikes, I didn't get into it through motocross or anything like that. I got into it strictly because I wanted to ride trails, and I love trail riding. Didn't care that much about racing. I mean, I've done some of it, but I wasn't particularly that good. The only reason I ever got a trophy in any race is because I was the least slow old fart that showed up. But I really always dug trail riding. And when the Tour of Idaho first sort of came to be, I thought about marrying together the two passions I've had in my adult life. My passion for the mountains via mountaineering and big wall rock climbing, and riding trail bikes in the woods. So the Tour of Idaho kind of is an event that meshes those two things together. So there's a series of standards, self-support being the most important of them. So that's kind of what drives the philosophy behind the Tour of Idaho. We're trying to create a really unique event that's first and foremost a bunch of fun. It's a big adventure, and it's designed to be that way. It's designed so that not everybody succeeds. You have to have a little bit of luck. You have to spend a lot of time preparing. You have to really either possess or develop over the course of the year that most teams spend preparing for this some skills in navigation and being self-sufficient in the woods for long periods of time by yourself. And the tour is designed to be all that stuff. Those aren't accidental parts of it. Those are things that we designed into it. Look, anybody can ride a dirt bike on trails in the woods. Anybody can do a PBR kind of ride. And I don't know about you, but I'm not particularly impressed that a human being can eat a bowl of cornflakes for breakfast. That's not in any way meant to be disparaging about any of those activities, because they're a blast. BDR rides are great. Riding trails is great. I love just day riding trails. But in terms of the magnitude of accomplishment along the spectrum of adventures that human beings can immerse themselves in, day riding a trail is just not that great. Even if it's a super hard trail, you can eventually figure out a way to wire that trail and push and pull your bike up it. Well, the tour is 2,000 plus miles. It's a lot of single track. Some of it's hard. You got 10 days to do it, and navigation's an issue. Not only do you have to be able to ride the trails on a loaded bike, but you got to be able to find them, which sometimes is problematic. And that was something that really knackered a lot of teams last year. So one of the things that the tour is not is it's not a BDR kind of a ride. We don't just give you a track and say, follow this track. We make the navigation a deliberate part of the adventure. Most people get it. Some people don't. The teams that get it and wrap their minds around it say that one of the most enjoyable parts of the entire Tour of Idaho experience was the year or 6 or so months that they spent basically immersing themselves in the route, trying to figure out how to navigate from waypoint to waypoint, which is the way we do it. We don't give you a track. We give you files that have waypoints in them. When we say, look, here's a waypoint. We guarantee this waypoint is good. We guarantee the next one is good. It's your job to find your way from one waypoint to the next. And we'll talk about navigation extensively later on. I'm going to talk about all the navigation devices that we recommend, and I'm going to tell you the ins and outs, why we use them, little features that make them cool. We'll go through all that stuff. You can consider Hot Stove League to basically be a 5 to 6 month long primer and how to do the Tour of Idaho. We'll go through everything as we go through these. The main thing about the Tour of Idaho is it is designed to be fun. And if you approach it with a sense of adventure and I want to have fun, and whether or not I get to the end and get a jersey number is less important to me than having a big old good time. You're the right kind of person for this. You're the kind of person that's going to enjoy the experience. Whether you make it or not, you're going to have the time of a lifetime. We have people that come back year after year. They come the first year, they couldn't quite wrap their mind around something about the tour, and they get in here and they have some trouble. They come back the next year, usually the second time around, it's butter. They succeed. Look, there is no template for the Tour of Idaho. There's nothing like it. Your experience in Baja won't help you here. Your experience in all these BDRs won't help you here. This is something completely different. So it's really tough to explain to people that all of the experience that you have riding a motorcycle only has limited value when you try to apply it to the Tour of Idaho. Because the Tour of Idaho is about more than just your ability to ride a dirt bike. In fact, I've always claimed that riding a dirt bike is about half of it, if that. I think your ability to, you have to be in really good physical condition, which I think is important. You have to have a really no-quit attitude. I think everybody that's ever finished the tour or made a good attempt at it would verify that that's true. It's your ability to basically keep going when you really want to stop that is more determinant than any other single factor when it comes to success or failure. You have to be willing to wrap your mind around some things that are new. The way we do navigation is very unique. And if you, some people reject that. They go, well, I don't understand it. I've done all these other long rides and they do it different. And I'm just going to do it my way. That almost uniformly results in failure. That's okay with me. If you want to do that and you come in here and it doesn't work, I'm fine with that as long as you own it when it doesn't work. The problem is the same people that make those kind of decisions then frequently are angry and then want to, talk about, well, this wasn't my fault. The directions were shit. And I failed because of everything else in the world, except I was too stubborn to listen. If you're one of those kind of people, just keep on going when you get to the flagpole, because I really don't want to have anything to do with you. Last year was the best year ever in terms of teams that showed up that were pretty well dialed for the tour. There have been two things that we've really emphasized over the years. The first was you have to go as light as possible. And our mantra has always been, look, you want to pare everything down to the bare minimum of what you think you need to ride 2,000 miles of single track through the woods. It's not all single track, but there's a lot of it. Single track, technical terrain. There are some transfer sections, but even some of the transfer sections are kind of challenging and fun. So you're going to ride a lot of technical trail. You got to strip your bike down to a gas tank and the bare minimum of what you need to get you through each day. You don't carry a sleeping bag. You don't carry a wall tent. You don't carry a cast iron skillet. You don't carry any of that stuff. I don't even carry a spare pair of underwear. I buy stuff like that in every town that I come to. I buy socks in every town I go to. There's a place you can get socks just about every place along the tour. And if not, there'll be a place the next day. So I carry very little stuff. I strip my bike down to basically a gas tank, a few tools, some navigation equipment, and I stuff my pack with water, power bar, stuff like that. Now, everybody's got a little bit different sensitivity for stuff like that. But, and there are some things that you have to carry that don't make the bike go forward. You have to have bear spray, for instance. There are some things like that that are just common sense. We recommend a bike self-rescue kit, especially for soloists. So there are some things you have to carry that are going to take up some space and add some weight. But we'll get into what all that stuff is later. But last year, more than ever, people dialed their kit down to the bare minimum, and then they took half of that and threw it away, which is exactly what we've been telling people to do for years. You don't want to set out with 50 pounds of stuff on your bike. That's too much. 25, 30, 35 pounds, maybe 40 in some cases, but definitely no more than that. You just got to strip that bike down to the bare minimum. Last year, most teams did that. So the challenge that we're facing now is we've got to convince more people to wrap their minds around the way we do navigation. And if you understand why we do it, It's easier to wrap your mind around the fact that you should do it. We'll go into that in more details later. Last year, about half the teams that showed up had their navigation pretty stacked. And if those teams didn't make it, it was because of some calamity that befell them. It had nothing to do with their preparation. Last year, every team that made it should have made it. There was nobody that sort of accidentally found their way to the end of the trail. Look, in mountaineering, we would occasionally see a troop of Boy Scouts find their way to the top of Denali in Alaska, wearing sneakers and sleeping bags that they bought at Walmart or someplace like that. When the stars align just right, if the trail's sawed, there's no fires, weather's pretty good, you got a lot of good luck on your side. It's not that bad. It's just that very rarely do all of those conditions occur over 11 days and 2,000 miles. Some things are going to go wrong. You're going to have some trouble navigating. You're going to have to saw your way through something. So last year, everybody that got it earned it. All the teams that made it were super well prepared. Every single one of them deliberated through some obstacles. And I could not have been more proud than I was of all the people that made it last year. They truly embodied what the spirit of the Tour of Idaho is all about, which is that they all had a big adventure and that I'm pretty sure they'll remember the rest of their lives. That's what we're trying to do here. You don't pay anything to do this to me. You just got to take care of the people along the way. We ask you to tip the people in the restaurants that we recommend. We ask you to make sure that you're kind to the people that put you up along the way. Make sure you take care of them. Part of this is about commerce, because people that live in those little towns in the middle of the state, you show up at some place like Smoky Bar Store and you're looking around and saying, man, Kaylin, this looks great. Well, it is great, but Kaylin can't eat the scenery. She's got to have a means of income. And the Tour of Idaho, like all of the BDRs, are doing a pretty good job of providing that for a lot of these little towns. So we want you to take care of the people along the way, but you don't owe me a thing. All right. Let's see if that does it. Okay. As I was saying, a T1 without any rules is known as a T2, and there's nothing wrong with showing up and doing a T2. You're not going to get a jersey number at the end, but it's just fine if you want to do a T2. I don't pay that much attention to T2, and it's in no way meant to be disrespectful to the people that do a T2. It's just because T1 takes all of my time. During that 6 weeks of Tour of Idaho season, my phone blows up every day. I'm usually shuttling people back and forth. It's just a lot. There's a lot of balls in the air. So T2 is a wonderful experience. I look all over the web and I see these guys that have done a T2 and they had the time of their lives and they post pictures. And I'm going, well, good for you, man. You had a good time. You did it on your own terms. It's not up to me or anybody else to tell you how to ride your motorcycle or how to have fun. But if you are interested in our particular brand of adventure, you follow our rules and you make it all the way to Sundance Mountain, we give you a jersey number. And so far, we're not even up into the 80s yet. We've been doing this for 15 years now, and I think this year we got it into the high 70s somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. So failure is a lot more common than success, but smiles are really common outcome of this. People fail, and they still say we had the greatest 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days we ever had. Oh yeah, we're coming back next year. So one of the things that I want to do is we go through the winter is I want to have a series of conversations with some of our business partners. As you know, we are partnered up with Climb and Trail Tech, Seat Concepts. Who else? You can look on the main page and Giant Loop. There's all kinds of people in the industry that we've partnered up with. And as I've told you before, I don't get anything out of any of this. I never ask any of our partners for anything. Occasionally they offer it up, but I don't bend their arms up behind their back and say, yeah, you got to pay Mojazz this much, or you have to give me stuff. I bring in companies that I think are good for you. They have to make a kick-ass product or set of products, and they have to have done some good things for our community. And if I can check off those two boxes and they're interested, they come in as a tour sponsor. One of the most recent businesses that we brought in is a Churbies, and it's my fault because we should have reached out to a Churbies a long time ago. Jimmy Lewis, who's a friend of mine and also has done a bunch of work with those guys, had mentioned that to me in the past, but it's just, again, too many balls in the air sometimes. It's something that just went right over my head. But a few months ago, I was introduced through mutual friends up in Ketchum to one Brian Fullerton, who I'm going to bring in right now. There you go. Live. Hey, how are you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing outstanding. And thanks for coming on. I'm really glad that you agreed to spend some time with us tonight.
Heck yeah.
So I told you earlier while we were doing the prep for this that I have no trouble talking for extended periods of time. I think you probably believe me now.
Yeah.
It's your turn. So now tell us all about how you got hooked up with the Churbies. Tell us what brought you to the Wood River Valley. Wow. Tell us everything about you and dirt bikes and what brought you to the Tour of Idaho, and lay it on us.
You got a couple hours, or we got half hour?
You know 40? What? I got 24 of these, so I'm willing to go on as long as you're here. By the way, Brian is the first guest I've ever had that was respectful enough. Hold it up. Hold it up.
Yes, sir.
He's drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon beer.
Yes, sir. Jimmy Lewis would kill me if I wasn't.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Brian, take it away.
Well, the short version of the story is I started in the industry in 1992 at a motorcycle shop, like a lot of people. 1998 came and still working at a shop 6 years later, and got introduced to a couple of people at the Churbies office. And this was in Poway, California, where I was born and raised. And it took a while to get the job. I'm not sure why it took so long, but I actually have worked for a Churbies since 1998. I've seen people come in and out of the office. I met Jimmy Lewis, Johnny Campbell, Desiree Abbott, racers and teams and such. And then 2006, a gentleman by the name of Bob Lowry, who's Fly Racing sales manager, and Scott Watanabe, who owns Mobius knee braces. At the time, they were running Scott Goggles, sorry. And they asked if I was interested in moving from California to Idaho. And it was basically, where do I sign? Let's go. Let's get out of California. Sorry. And moved to Idaho and been here ever since. So I've been here 16 years. And I will be, full disclosure, I'm not much of a trail rider up until this summer. I got to ride with Jeff Jensen, Jeff Mintz, Josh Commons, ride with Bob Lowry. And yeah, but I was basically up here riding a motocross bike out in the natural terrain. And then about a year ago, got rid of the motocross bike, just getting older. I'm 44, and started trail riding. And I mean, I've heard about the Tour of Idaho years ago. Our good buddy Jimmy Lewis, he actually stopped by the office. Our office is up in Ketchum, Idaho, and he stopped by on his way, which was awesome. And he was doing a single, I think he was solo ride for Tour of Idaho then. Not sure what year it was, but
2015.
He stopped. What's that? What year?
2015.
Was it 2015? Yeah, he stopped and he was in the office. I didn't know he was on a time schedule. I mean, he was there. He blew in and blew out. But, I mean, I had no idea what the Tour of Idaho was at that point. Thereafter, started looking it up, interested. It's something that's pretty badass, though. I mean, you guys that do it and a couple of my friends in town that have attempted it, and Jeff Jensen's completed it a couple times. This year was weather-related, poor guy. But, yeah, that is a badass ride. Like, I'm really happy to be part of this group. Happy to sponsor. Happy to be, help out a couple riders with some products. But I'm an enthusiast. It's probably that would be a bucket list thing for me. It's pretty badass to do that ride.
So
riding Ketchum, yes, sir.
By the way, thank you very much, Brian. This year, despite the fact that he had just been brought in, I mean, we basically ginned this whole thing up during August while the tour was going on. Brian and his Cherry Beast very generously offered up a pretty good deal for people that completed the tour this year. Climb threw in some stuff. I think Trail Tech is still trying to figure out if they want to do something. They talked about it, but the people that finished the tour this year got an awful lot of nice stuff, either free or at a steep discount from several people. And Cherry Beast was one of the companies that did something for people that finished. And on behalf of everybody, I heard nothing but good things about that. Thank you again for what you did.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I've talked to a couple of the guys. A couple of the guys reached out, questions. And I mean, there was one racer or one rider that I sent some products to and just said, hey, try this out. Let me know what you think. So much of the products we make these days, from frame guards and oversized gas tanks and skid plates. I mean, everything we make, it seems like lately we're going in that direction of the bikes we ride for the tour, XCWs, EXCs, dual sport type bikes, trail ride bikes. But a lot of the products we carry kind of fits in that segment with the Tour of Idaho riders. So it kind of, I mean, I've wanted to, kind of get a hold of you guys, get a hold of you actually, and do this years ago. But, we've been known as an off-road company since started in 1973 in USA by Franco Acerbi's, the owner. And I mean, that's his passion. I mean, he sponsored so many races, a lot of Mexico races, ISDEs. There's so many races to count that Franco Acerbi has sponsored. And something like this is right up his alley. This is something without a doubt. If we were in Italy or vice versa, whatever, this would be something, he would be very much interested in. So we're really happy to be part of it.
Yeah. This year, for the first time, we have an international team coming. We have some guys, a team from Germany and Switzerland that are coming over all the way over here to do the tour. And I don't know about you, but I'm stoked to the gills about that. The fact that guys would do what it takes to get themselves and their bikes from Europe to Idaho to do this says a lot.
That's huge.
These guys are some solid dudes too. In fact, they were planning on watching. If you're out there, make sure you say hello. It's a little weird on their time, so they might watch the replay. But we're going international, baby, starting this summer.
That's great. Yeah. Now, are these guys going to bring their bikes, ship their bikes, or buy bikes? Do we know?
The last time I checked, they were bringing their own bikes. They're making some provision to have them shipped over here.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a tough one because we've had a lot of people over the years that have said, hey, is there a way we can rent a bike? And nobody that knows the Tour of Idaho would rent you a bike to do it because they tend to come back with the wheels not round and stuff like that anymore. Yeah, so what we tell people is, you could probably buy one. And in Idaho, it's not too hard to buy something that's pretty close to what you need. As you know, Brian, there's a pretty healthy used bike market around here.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd have to show up a week or so early, to do a little bit of work on it to get it to be what you want. You want to ride it around and dial the suspension and stuff. But that's what we've always told people in the past. But I got to tell you, if it were me, I think I'd bite the bullet and ship my bike.
Really?
I
I
would.
don't know what I'd do. I don't know. Well, you can't even get bikes right now, so.
Yeah. It's last summer, the international guys were supposed to be here last summer, but COVID knackered all that, so they punted it till next year.
Good for
Tell
them.
us about a Chair Beast as a company. Tell us about your product line, a little bit about the history of the company, things like that.
Well, the history of the Cherubies was pretty easy. Back in the day, Press and Petty made the first plastic fenders, and Franco at Cherubies was importing those. Nice. Cherubies. Thank you, Justin. Franco at Cherubies was importing them, the plastic fenders, into Europe. And it actually started from there, where he was buying them, and then he started saying, forget it, I can make my own. And then they started with the Nost fender, N-O-S-T, which is just a universal fender. But back in the days, that's what everybody used, was universal fenders rather than the metal ones. But I mean, through the years, we still have gear, we still have boots, chest protectors, almost every single thing for the bike. I mean, we have protection for the upper part of the forks, lower forks, disc covers, frame guards, skid plates. Lately, we've been kind of mixing it up and changing the game with plastic colors. It's kind of our thing. We've been doing. It's nothing new. It's something we've been doing for the past 5-6 years. It kind of makes us different than our competitors. So I mean, you might see a blue, I don't know, pick one, blue Honda. You could see a silver Suzuki. I've made gold plastics before. I've made some crazy colors where I personally wouldn't run it, but it was the most popular color ever. Teal. We've made teal colored plastics for bikes. And those are for trail bikes, motocross bikes, all bikes. We'll make it for one. We'll make them for all of them. But I mean, the product line we have it's so many different products. It's a lot. All current motocross bikes, all current trail bikes, enduro bikes. Yeah, we make a lot of stuff.
You guys make a lot of stout stuff too. I mean, your plastics are pretty stout products. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember the 7+ gallon tank that you used to make for the XR 650R, that big Baja tank?
We actually made. It was funny you say that. It was 6 gallons in the front and 6 point something in the front and 3. It was like a 6 and a 4. And that was for actually Johnny Campbell for the back then the Paris to Dakar race, the rally.
Yeah. Well, I had one of those front. I had one of those front tanks, and I did the tour one year on an XR 650R with that big tank. It was nearly 7 gallons. It's huge. The thing is it's like this freaking wide. It's incredible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the thing is really tough because I mean that tank is so big. It's not big. Really meant for woods riding, right? And I couldn't get the lower braces on, so I screwed it on as good as I could. But there were places where you literally couldn't fit the thing between trees because the tank was so big. So I'd back up about 10 feet and just go pop and ram the thing through the trees, and it didn't leak at the end of 2,000 miles of that. I think it was an awesome tank. I beat the crap out of it, and I didn't even have those lower stout braces screwed on, but the thing never came off the bike, never leaked. Everything worked great, and I've still got it sitting out in my shop. It's I consider it like a museum piece now.
It is. It is. Yeah, I mean, we've even made it was like a 10-gallon BMW R80 GS fuel tank. I've seen some crazy tanks, some really big boy tanks. But I mean, when we make tanks, especially recently, when you sit on the bike, we don't want it to where your legs are so far apart and you're gripping this big tank that it's just super uncomfortable. So we've actually been, bringing the actual weight lower, a little bit higher. We'll actually put, when you bolt on the radiator shrouds, sometimes you'll see the actual tank come out in between the shrouds. So we'll try to get as much oversized fuel gas in that tank as much as we can. I mean, you'll see a little like 2-stroke tank. The center of gravity, we try to get it towards down low, not up high towards, super heavy, oversized tank and super wide. We don't want to do any of that. The thickness of the tanks, though, it's pretty good. I mean, I crash test my XCW 300 all the time. I did on Saturday. Tried log jumping. It was log falling, basically. And the first thing I looked at, I had the radiator braces on, I had all the protection on, tank was good, no leaking, nothing broke on the bottom. But yeah, we make a lot of different products. There's so much different stuff. We've made gear. We sponsored Supercross teams back in the day. All the off-road guys, Johnny Campbell, Jesse Abbott, Jimmy Lewis, they all wore a Cherby's gear back in the good old days, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And the gear was actually so good it would not wear out. I kid you not. And it wasn't the name brand stuff. It wasn't Fox. It wasn't Fly. It wasn't anything like that. It was a Cherby's. And the guys who bought a Cherby's gear, there might be somebody on here that has worn the gear, but it's not a flashy type brand, but we're not pushing that. That's just for fun. We push our plastics and fuel tanks and protection and stuff. That's our big focus.
In terms of fuel tanks, with the basically fuel injected bikes are nearly ubiquitous these days. My 300 is not TPI. My 300 is still carbureted. Whoa. I bought one of the last ones in 17 specifically because I wanted a carbureted bike. But fuel injected bikes are everywhere these days. I think the answer to does it present a challenge is probably yes. But what kind of a challenge does that present to you, a manufacturer of tanks? It's got to make it a lot harder to manufacture a wide variety of tanks.
Yes. I mean, there's some issues. There's issues. The fuel pump is actually a tough one on some bikes. And it's because you're dealing with plastic and you're dealing with, explosive material, flammable material, the gas, seating up against the bike. It has to be perfect. If it's warped, there's any issues, there's leakage. There's definitely, we have our trials and tribulations of, going through carbureted versus TPI fuel injection. It's a tough deal. But I mean, it's one of the weird things that people always ask us about is like KTM fuel tanks. The EXCs come with a brass insert inside the tank. The XCWs do not, and we do not put any brass inserts in our KTM tanks because that's how the engineers thought of it. That's how they designed it. That's what we keep doing. But people will ask us, how come you don't have brass inserts? And it actually seals it pretty good with that wood screw. I should have brought one, but the wood screw will actually tighten up the plastics and the fuel pumps and everything like that super tight versus a brass insert and aluminum screw. Sometimes they'll make a bond and they'll actually corrode and then it'll leak that way. So, I mean, there's little tricks. I don't want to tell everybody our tricks, but there's some things we do with our fuel tanks that our competitors don't. And actually, speaking of fuel tanks, the past, 4 or 5 years, we've just been making more and more tanks, broader range of bikes. I mean, I won't say any names, but the other folks that make fuel tanks, they're still doing a really, really fine job, but we have really good distribution, really good customers. I mean, it started with the R&D years ago. They started kicking ass and making some really good fuel tanks. So we're really happy with those. I mean, that's like a big, big seller for us right now is fuel tanks, oversized fuel tanks. And I can't order enough for the KTMs. I'm always out.
No doubt.
Yep.
Brian, is there anything else that you want to tell us tonight while I have you here? You've been really generous with your time. We've had you on for about a half an hour now. Anything else that you want to tell the tour community?
No, other than they're all badass. I wish I could do the tour. It's just, I don't know.
Jensen and I are going to fix that.
Gosh, you'd have to have a motorhome out there for me. I'm a big wussy.
Don't say that now. Now you're starting to make it like a challenge.
I'm just joking. No,
I'm going to be on the phone to Jensen tonight saying, "Yep, we're going to get Brian down here next year."
You should call and wake that old guy up. He's probably sleeping right now.
By the way, did I hear you say that you were an old guy at 44 years old a while ago?
Well, not being a skinny athlete all my life, jumping motocross bikes and triples and doubles and step ups, I have a back of a old man and legs and knees of an old man. So,
son, 44 years old. Is it 44 years old means you're still occasionally crying for your mama to lift the toilet seat off your wee-wee. 44 years old is a baby in this community.
Pretty much. I know. I'm just starting out. I'm just starting out. I mean, all the old dogs ride, and they're faster than me. I mean, the guys in Ketchum that I ride with, they kick ass.
One interesting thing about this community is it does attract older riders, and I think there's a variety of reasons for that. We have had some young people finish. We had a guy in his late teens finish a few years ago. This year we had a team, a couple of 20-year-old guys. Last year we had a couple of 20-year-old guys. But it's generally people that are a little older. So like Jensen and Mintz and all those guys, they're kind of our core demographic. There's one of them right here.
I saw that.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Stuart this year. I really apologize to Stuart. Stuart is a man after my own heart. He's a super good guy. I thought he was like 19 years old. That's what he looked like. And he goes, dude, I'm 30. And I felt really bad. But 30? At least, yeah. I mean, wow. That's good when you look a lot younger your age, right? But I think he may have thought it was not appearance, but behavioral characteristics or something that I was gauging him on. All right, man. Brian, I so appreciate your time, brother. I really appreciate you coming on. We'll have you back sometime soon. I'm going to come up. I was talking to JJ the other night. I got to come up and drink some beers with you guys as soon as I get healed up. So It'll be sometime after the snow flies, but I'll be seeing you in a month or so.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll be looking out for you. Be fun.
All right,
man. Go for a ride in the springtime too.
All right. Take care. Thanks again for joining us.
You too. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.
Whoops. Let me get. All right. Here we go. Now we got it. All right. We get this out of here. All right. So we got a few minutes left. The first thing is I'm going to open it up for questions. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to go back into the spiel a little bit earlier and just talk a little bit about generally what the tour is all about. It's fun, adventure. That's what we want you to have. Last year, it was kind of funny. There was only one really unhappy team last year. Some guys that showed up, and they clearly had not done very much study about what the tour is about. They didn't have their nav dialed. But they were out to set every speed record in the world. So they were riding insane speeds on transfer sections and stuff like that. Posting their times, like they would take pictures of their maximum speed from their GPS units and post them in their Instagram feeds and stuff like that. When you're doing that kind of stuff, it's pretty clear that you don't understand what's going on here. You're probably also not going to finish. If you don't kill somebody else, you're going to kill yourself. 2,000 miles of technical terrain is a lot to cover. The first day one of the Tour of Idaho, is more single track than a lot of people do in an entire season. And it's fairly technical single track too. It's a long way. I think day one, if I'm not mistaken, if you're doing the 3-team variant, I think we were getting 203, 205 miles out of that this year, and a lot of single track and a lot of quad trail on that first day. But we did have teams show up this year. And one guy dropped out after the first day. His partner went on. His partner obviously had not done any of his own navigation. They might have actually been trying to help each other out a little bit. I don't know. But the takeaway was the guy got angry after about 3 days. He claimed his wallet got stolen, and that's why he was dropping out. I don't know what the real deal was, but his parting shot was, I've worked with race promoters everywhere, and you were the worst one ever, which indicates how much that individual completely didn't understand what's going on here. A lot of people told the guy, well, ask for a refund of your race fee then, which is the point. We don't ask anything of anybody here. We don't demand anything of anybody. If you want to do this thing, you do it as a volunteer. If you want to just go ride a route and claim every speed record in the world, do all that stuff, just go do it. And Adventure Rider is full of people like that have all done the tour in 3 days, and it was casual. Go knock yourself out. What we are after is not that. We don't keep track of anybody's records or anything like that. We're equally proud of everybody that finishes, especially, but even the people that give it a good try. There was a team last year that made it all the way to day 6, and they were kicking butt. really minor navigation error on day 6 did them in. If they had basically walked another 30 feet to their left while they were bushwhacking, I'm pretty sure that that team would have completed the Tour of Idaho. A little bit of bad luck. I mean, there was some navigation involved in that, but it was mostly just bad luck that did them in. That happens to people every year. Those guys, there wasn't any complaint out of those guys. They didn't whine about how hard it was and how unfair it was and how they got screwed and you know, it was the worst race they were ever in their life. They just said, nope, we made a mistake and we're coming back next year. That's the kind of attitude that will eventually lead to your success. You know, we live in a society where personal responsibility is something that's kind of flown by the wayside. And I noticed this a lot in my career as a college professor, that about half of my students had a great deal of personal responsibility and the other half didn't. You know, the reasons for that are kind of complex, but this is one of those things that's all about you. If you prepare yourself and you work hard enough, you're diligent in your preparation, you show up, you got your stuff all stacked up the right way, the odds of your success are pretty darn good. You can still have some bad luck, but good luck and bad luck follows its own nose in both cases. If you've prepared a lot, you're really increasing the odds that a fire or a storm or a trail that's not sawed aren't going to be enough to be a fatal to you. You're probably going to be able to figure out a way to get around it. And by the way, one of the things that's going to happen this year that is I see, yeah, Sean McD, Powder Gulch. Sean, I saw on your Facebook page where you were up riding that and you managed to get all the waypoints. Good for you. There's been a whole bunch of people up there messing around with that trail, which is one of the things that I think has made it kind of hard. We're going to keep it the way we laid it out. And so our waypoints are going to be what I'm going to ask everybody to do. You know, it is what it is. And if you get out there and you work hard, your odds of success are a lot greater. Doesn't mean something bad can't happen, but the odds go way up the more prepared you happen to be. And as I was saying a minute ago, one of the things that we're going to continue to do this year is have optional sections and bonus sections. I really like that a lot because if there's a fire that crops up, for instance, you can stash some, if you ride some of these bonus sections, which we try available every day. If a fire comes up and a bunch of the tours closed, you can just ride around it, get back on the trail as early as you can, and you will have enough points, challenge points in your back pocket from all these bonus sections that you might have ridden that you can easily make up the points you lost for having to ride around a fire. Same thing for a trail that's not sawed. You get up and Lundy Ridge Rock Garden Trail, for instance, on day 9 is a trail that doesn't get sawed sometimes till way late in the season. And usually it's me up there sawing it. Last year I didn't get a chance to do that, so I was very relieved when we found out that it had been sawed. You get up there, that trail's not sawed. It looks like there's 1,000 trees between you and the other end of it. You know, ride back out, ride around it if you've got a bunch of bonus sections in your pocket. So that's something that we're going to continue this year, this trend of giving you some choice about which way to go. A bonus section is not the same thing as a challenge section. I saw a question that just came up here. Challenge sections mean something a little bit different than bonus sections, and we'll go through all that when we start talking about navigation. If you are curious in the meantime, you could just go read the information on Mojazz. If you go to the challenge point page, it articulates, I think, pretty clearly the difference between a bonus section and a challenge section. They're kind of two different separate things. One of the things that we're going to do in the future, I won't have a chance to do much more of that this year, is we're really going to up this whole bonus section principle to include bonus days. The reason for that is I don't want the Tour of Idaho to ever be more than 10 days. 10 days is long enough. If we start, I mean, I could make it 2 weeks if I wanted to, but at some point, very few people would make it. 10 days is enough. That last day is pretty easy, so it's actually only 9 days that have some grit to them, some gravitas, if you will. So I don't want to make it any more than 10 days. What I would like to do, though, is give you the option where maybe day 3 you can take 2 completely different paths. You can go the east way or the west way or the north or the south way. That also helps people that come back. We have a lot of people that have done the tour multiple times. You know, they do it. They wait a few years until the route's changed enough that they feel like it's worth coming back. I want to give people that have done it once and want to come back and do it again a reason to come back. So we're going to, in the future, continue to expand this idea of bonus sections. And I think we're going to parlay it into entire bonus days where you show up and on day 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, you have an entire separate route you can take. The two routes don't interact with each other at all. They start and end at the same place, but there's two completely separate ways to get there. The other thing that we're going to do, and this is going to start this year, is we're going to have some special navigational challenges. We already have challenge sections, and challenge sections are sections that in some way add to the technical difficulty of the tour. They either increase the length or it's more difficult significantly than the regular route. There's one of them that doesn't really do either of those things. We put it in there just because it was kind of a nice section and it was a little bit longer and a little bit harder to navigate than the regular route. But for the most part, the challenge sections are technically more difficult sections of trail, or if they're not more difficult, they're longer. So you're going to spend more time on the challenge section than you would on the regular trail. What we're going to do is have some special navigational challenges. And the first one of those is going to come this year on day 2. So I'll tell you right now, day 2 is a day that's going to see some changes this year. Used to be day 2 was the hardest day. And those of you who've seen the Jimmy Lewis movie, he talks about day 2 being kind of a beater. The version of day 2 that Jimmy did was way hard. We used to have a lot more ride through the sand out of American Falls than we do now. You used to ride 30 or 40 miles through those sand whoops and dunes and stuff. And the navigation was tough. On a hot day, you're riding a loaded bike down all those whooped out trails and stuff. It'd kill you. The last time I did the tour in 2014, I got so hot out there one day, it was over 100 degrees, that I jumped in one of those fetid cow troughs that you find way out in the middle of the desert just to cool down. I reeked for days after that too, but it was the only way to prevent hypothermia. So the section west of American Falls, because of some private land issues, we've had to shrink down over the years to the point now where we'll even ride a ditch down beside the paved road for a long way. So instead, what we're going to do is north of there, once you get around all of the plowed fields that are just east of the lava flow, the Great Rift, there's the lava rock desert that takes you up to Big Southern Butte. And there's all kinds of interesting things we can do out in that lava rock desert. And we're going to have some special navigational challenges out there. So to encourage you to sort of adopt our way of thinking about navigation, which is develop the ability to go from one waypoint to the next, be able to read a compass, be able to sort of estimate distances, be able to follow trails, do a little bit of old-fashioned scouting for a trail. We're going to set some stuff up out in the desert where it's really going to be kind of difficult to find your way through there. You're going to have your navigation dialed before you get out there. Now, you have the ability to spend a lot of time looking at satellite and aerial photos before you go. In fact, those of you who have read the Mojazz pages know that we recommend you do that. You should spend, I spend a week on each day preparing it. Probably you should spend at least that much time going through the aerial photos that correspond to the maps and the waypoint files that we put out on Mojazz. So that desert section, we're gonna construct something kind of interesting. There's going to be a very interesting little single track trail that's going to go through lava rock out there. It'll be kind of technical to ride, but the biggest part of it is going to be finding your way across it. And if you got your navigation dialed, you should be able to get across it pretty easily. If you don't, you may have some trouble, and we might have to ding you a point or two if you don't hit your marks. We're going to have some places out there that you're going to have to find, and it'll be pretty easy for us to ascertain after the fact if you actually found those places. We'll make them challenge points so you'll be able to upload a photo and do all that. It'll be a bunch of fun. It won't pose any kind of challenge for anybody that's sat down and done their homework on nav. But every year we get a couple teams that show up that really haven't done any of the nav. They borrowed tracks from somebody else. Those people will get clocked when they get out there because they won't be able to get through this special challenge. Now, we're coming up on time here, and unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to drink my Pabst Blue Ribbon beer in front of the TV here in a few minutes. So If anybody's got any questions, fire away right now. If not, I'll see you next Monday night. So if you got questions, ask them right now. I'm not seeing anything. All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us tonight for 50 minutes. We'll do this every week. I'll come up with a topic specifically for next week. Hold on here. I do have a question here. Would you prefer us to ask our NAV questions here on the forums? You can ask them here and in the forums, but right now, since the route isn't available for next year yet, specific NAV questions we might want to put off about the route. But if you have a general NAV question that you want to ask right now, go ahead and ask it right now, and I'll try to answer it. But you can ask here. You can ask in the forum. That's what both of these things are for. In the forum, you're more likely to get an answer from somebody beside me. Here, you're probably going to get an answer directly from me. Stuart, I'll see you later, partner. That's it for this week. I'll come up with a topic for next week in a few days, and I'll post it up on the old interwebs. We may have a guest next week. Thanks a lot for joining us on every Monday night, and we'll see you all down the road. Cheers.